Okay. Oh God, my hair's a mess. My hair's a disaster. Why did I allow myself to go on camera like this? I don't know what I'm doing. All right. But the show must go on. Hi everyone. Happy Friday. How is everyone doing? Oh, I did not check what my stream settings were before starting. It should be fine. The bitrate is much lower than it normally is for YouTube. I'm gonna fix that. Alright, give me 1 second here. Okay, I don't know if it's gonna make it that much better. Cute top, thank you. I do like this top. I feel like with this messy hair and this shirt, it feels very 90s to me, and I have to be honest, when I was a teenager, I loved 90s fashion, but 90s was very out when I was in high school. It was, even if you wanted to dress 90s, like it wasn't old enough to be able to really buy it in thrift stores yet. And it also wasn't old enough to where there were like new versions of it you could buy like in regular stores. So I'm living my 90s dreams now. Alright, I have literally been running around all day today. I had a very last minute project I had to work on yesterday and it just like completely messed up my whole schedule, but it's a collaboration with, not really, I want to say collaboration. I am contributing to another YouTuber's video. I don't know how much of my contribution's really going to be used yet. I don't know, but I'm excited to see what happens, and we'll see where it goes. I'm excited to see what happens with it. It was worth it, but it did sort of mess up my schedule. You look fabulous, by the way. Wish you had your glowing perfect skin. I do not have perfect skin. My whole face right here has been broken out for like 2 weeks. This right here, this is concealer. This is a little bit more natural. This right here is brought to you by the power of concealer. That's all it is, but thank you. I appreciate it. I might take a minute and like the stream's bitrate is lower than recommended. Oh, it's lower than recommended. That's new. Let's fix that, shall we? But how's everyone doing? How's your Friday? What's going on? Any fun weekend plans? Yes, I don't know when this contribution to a video will be live. I can't really talk about what it is yet, but you guys will enjoy it. It's very much related to my usual topics, but in sort of a way that I don't generally discuss on YouTube, so it should be fun and interesting. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. I'll let you know when it comes out. I'll post about it on Twitter and stuff. But yeah, that was my Thursday. I love 90s fashion. It's so good. Love 90s stuff, but it's coming back, but I feel like it's the parts of 90s fashion that I hate, like midriff tops and mini skirts, and I love lettuce trim hems. I love, the sort of twist tie tops. I love that kind of stuff, but I hate boxy t-shirts, midriff tops, and low-rise jeans. Those I don't want back. 90s, keep those. Leave that there. That's fine. Don't want it. Don't need it. That can be yours. But that seems to be the thing that the TikTokers are making fashionable, and so we are all cursed. Hello, Lamakunin. Hello, Twixie Shores. Hello, Rom. Hello, Atticus or Adius. Hello, Dave. Hello, Christian. Hello, Harley. Hello, Andrew. Hello, Feels Violet. Hello, Hellhound. Hello, Ash. Hello, Felicia. Hello, Aurora. Hello, Nathan. Hello, Political T. Hello, Sasha. Hello, Amy. All right, is anyone else I missed? Hello, B. Hello, Neil. Hello, Churglem. That definitely sounds like something from a Lovecraft novel, but I love it. That's in a good way. And hello, Paleo Kitty. Glad so much you guys could be here on this wonderful Friday. Spend some time with me. The neighbor is mowing the lawn across the street. If you can hear that, that's how it is. I woke up this morning at 6 a.m. because someone was playing very loud music outside. So, sweet. It's been awesome. Oh, my door's not. Okay. Give me 1 second. gotta be very careful to make sure the door is actually closed because it does not want to close very easily. Yes, so glad you finally got to catch a live stream. Well, I should probably get into the spiel. I really want to fix my hair because I feel like I've just had it up all day and it's like that's what we're working with. And I like a good messy bun, but I like it to be, you know, not, I don't know if that's better, if that's worse. I feel like it's better because the clog was like digging into my scalp and like pulling my hair, and I didn't like that. So, all right, bird's nest hair. We're sticking with it. We're going with it. I thought Bandit was joining us. No, not today. I feel like, you know how Tara Moon, if you guys know her, she always starts her videos by being like, this is the only YouTube channel that is written and produced by a cow. She couldn't be in the video today because she had, insert reason here related to video topic, because she had a dentist appointment. But maybe if you like the video, she'll appear in the next one. Like, that's how I feel like I am sometimes with Bandit. I promise she's real and okay. She is a free spirit and she wants to be outside, and that's where she's at because somehow I legitimately do not remember a time when I've lived here on this coast that it has been this warm for this long all the way into September. Like, I like it, but I'm worried, you know? Yes, so I will say, before we get into it, thank you all so much for being here. If you like this stream, do go ahead and give it a thumbs up because it apparently helps other people find this stream, so that's pretty cool. And also, if you do enjoy these streams and you are wanting to help people out, I totally appreciate you guys wanting to be like, hey, read the rules, read the FAQ. I will just go ahead and give my spiel. One, this is an 18 plus only live stream, so if you're not at least 18, please don't be here. That is to keep myself safe, you safe, everyone safe. We don't really want to mix minors and the topics that we cover together. It's a gray area. We try not to get into those gray areas. Also, there is a set of rules and an FAQ down below because I do these FAQ streams every week, and so naturally we get a lot of the same questions occasionally. So if you have questions along the lines of, how do I tell my partner I want to try BDSM? Where can I buy a flogger? What books do you recommend? That's all down below, and I have a fully updated FAQ that I did a couple months ago, and so all the links, everything should be working on that. And then just some really basic rules. Don't spam the chat. I answer questions in the order that they come in, so if you have a question and I don't get to it yet, just wait. If you ask a question 5 times in a row, I'm definitely not going to answer it because I'll be annoyed. But I will give people a chance at the last 15, 20 minutes of the stream to re-ask questions if I did actually miss them and I didn't quite get to them. But that is from the main stuff to know. And then also, I don't give medical advice. I don't give mental health advice. So if you're like, hey, is this infected? Do I need to go see a doctor? Is this medication for bipolar working for me? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. So my general answer to any sort of mental health related question is going to be, I'm not a medical health professional, and so I can't help you, but good luck. Those are the things. Those are the things to know. Yes, I do try to get to everyone, but I can't promise that I'm going to get to all of the questions. If you want to make sure I do answer your question, you can do that either with a super chat, which is like the $ in the chat, or you can go to a link below that's in the description box. If you open that up, there's a link to Streamlabs, which is another way that you can donate to me. That way I keep 100% of whatever you donate. If you use a super chat, YouTube keeps 30% of it. So keep that in mind. Apparently that's better than Twitch. But that's the split, is YouTube's like, hey, free money for us. We'll take 30% of that. And it's like, you're owned by Google? What do you need 30% of a $5 super chat for? But that's how it works around here. What? All right. Chair adjusted. All right. Are you going to focus on me, camera? I feel like my camera really just does not. Why is it not focusing me if I'm like back here? What's happening? Do you need to like move something? Okay. Camera settings. Look at close up of my skin. You guys can see all of the acne. Did I just mess it up? I'm gonna have to turn my camera on and off again, aren't I? Yep. Did that work? Okay, I think that worked. All right, I'm gonna stick with it. We're gonna stick with it. Twitch is 50/50. Cash App? I don't have Cash App. Though it is, Cash App is the best way to buy and sell services online, according to Channel 5 News. So they have my vote, but I don't actually have Cash App. Yeah, the autofocus is losing me a bit. This is the thing, though, is I have it on spot focus, and it, like, sometimes it's able to keep up with me, and sometimes it's not. And it's very, very confusing, especially when I'm live, and I'm like, how do I fix this? But we try our best. All right, I'm going to let people know on Twitter that we're streaming. But in the meantime, while I'm doing that, let's see if I have any questions. It might be the black shirt in the background. Well, it's not focusing on the shirts in the background instead of me. Like, this is, like, now it's keeping up with me pretty well. But before, it would either focus on my microphone or my chair. So I don't think it's the background stuff because it's too far away and it doesn't look like people. So... Ooh, so it's my birthday weekend, and I'm thinking about celebrating at Folsom. Do you have any tips or ideas on what I should do there this year? Well, I do have a video that I did a couple years ago when I went to Folsom, and I really, really loved it. So I recommend that you go. I don't know, because it's been a couple of years since I've gone because of COVID. I don't know how different it is these days, but if you're in the area, I totally recommend going to Folsom. I recommend going there earlier in the day, like as early as you possibly can, because the longer the day goes on, it's going to get busier and busier and hotter. There's going to be more people that are drinking, and if you don't want to be around that, then obviously you don't want to be around that. And there are a lot of parties and after parties and bar events and club nights that happen in conjunction with the Folsom Street Fair. And that's a very much, your mileage is going to vary situation. I can't definitively say if it's like a good or a bad idea to do that. Oh, we have a donation here from Twixie Shores. Oh God, it's so loud.
Do you have any suggestions when you just want to be alone after experiencing syndrome? I don't want to ignore my dome's needs, but there are times where I want nothing more than space.
Yes. All right, I'm going to finish answering this Folsom question, then I'll answer that because I definitely have thoughts. So for myself, I had a good time going to the dungeon parties when I was at the Folsom event. However, they were incredibly busy, like packed in like sardines, wall-to-wall people. Like, it wasn't like you meet people, you chat them up, you negotiate something. There's all this room and space. Like, you have to go there with a plan, with people, do your thing, because all the event space is very limited. You have like half an hour to do your scenes, then you got to go out. Like, it's very hard to have more of a go with the flow approach. But that's just my experience. What was the name of the dungeon I went to? I think it was the Citadel. I think it was the Citadel that I went to when I was in San Francisco. So other places might be different. I certainly don't have experience at all of the different after parties, but from what I know, it's all always very busy the entire weekend. Earlier is always going to be better. Don't forget your water. Don't forget your sunscreen. Keep yourself safe. Keep yourself hydrated. But even if you only go and like walk around Folsom and watch people play or go to the vendors, like, you're going to have a fun time. That's all you do. You don't have to go to any of the other events. Because when I went, I think it was it the only year I went or the first year I went? I think I only went the one year. And when I went, it was a very quick weekend trip. We only really went to events on the one night and then like flew back. Like, it was super quick. And even that I found was a really enjoyable experience, because like San Francisco isn't really that far away, but I have to take a plane to get there. So All right. So, on the subject of sub drop, I should maybe first explain what sub drop is because I'm imagining that not everyone knows what sub drop is, which is totally fine. So, sub drop is when you do a BDSM scene and you get all these really good feelings that happen, maybe, and you have a scene and you go through maybe perhaps an altered mental state. You go through an intense experience on some level, physically, mentally, and or emotionally. That can result in, even if you had a good scene, something called sub drop. So there's sub drop, which I would kind of break it down in sort of two categories. There's sub drop because the scene was bad and you had a bad time and you're like emotionally reeling and needing to recover after having a bad scene because it didn't go well, or you felt disconnected or went too far, like something about it was wrong or off or bad in some way. Then there's sub drop that's more like neurochemical, where you had a good scene, you felt good afterwards, it was a really fun experience, but afterwards, because of how intense it was mentally on your brain in like a chemical way, you end up going through a process of like your body, I don't know if a hangover is the right term necessarily as a comparison, but your body's going through a lot to try and recover. And because of that, you can feel some pretty like crappy feelings. You might be really ornery, you might be irritable, you might be angry, you might be really sad, you might cry a lot. Aftercare is designed to fight this sub drop. So aftercare is the stuff you do after a scene to help yourself and reconnect with your partner. And I will definitely get to your question, Political Tea. Thank you so much for the question and the donation. I am super excited to get to it, but I will finish this one first with due diligence. So everyone goes through sub drop differently. Everyone has different reactions, different types of play might cause you to either not get sub drop at all or have it feel very differently, right? So for me, like the sub drop I get from like impact play is very different from the sub drop I might get from bondage or something, just because they are taxing and intense in different ways, enough for them to mentally feel different. But I would say the most common. Sorry, I haven't had any water today at all. I've been very bad. And I'm just like very, very thirsty right now. So expect there to be lots of water bottle appearances. But in my experience, I would say that wanting to be alone is very common, especially when I've done a scene that was by design very physically and emotionally taxing, and it was something where maybe it wasn't meant to like my partner, maybe there was fear in it, maybe it was scary or had like some kind of emotional sadism component to it, where it's not just the physical stuff that's sadistic, but also the way maybe my partner talks to me or how they act in a scene or what roles we're playing. There's some aspect of it that makes it more psychologically complicated that I definitely have experiences with. All right, are we gonna seriously? Right, I'm in the middle of an important point. Just focus on my actual eyeballs. I swear to God, I'm gonna kill this camera. Anyways, I'm going to keep answering this without having the autofocus distract me. But with sub drop, I would say that wanting to be alone is really common, but there is, like you pointed out, there is this difficulty with when you have another partner you're playing with and you have your dom or you have your top and they have their own aftercare needs, they have their own drop that they experience, they have top drop maybe, where your needs are conflicting with their needs, and you have to figure out how to mesh those things together to make sure you both get what you want. And I think that you needing your own space is very valid, and I'm not telling you to not look for space and not get that if that's what you really need. I would say that if there's a way where you can have kind of like a surrogate aftercare partner for your partner, like maybe I don't know if you're poly or something, maybe you have other partners, maybe you have a friend or they have a friend, somebody that they can be with and debrief with, or maybe it's just as simple as like reminding them verbally with a note, a text, an email, something where you say, I am really looking forward to talking with you more about the play that we did. I still love you, care about you, want to play with you again, respect you as a person, love you as a friend, whatever it is you want to say that makes sense for your relationship. But I just need my own space right now to really decompress from that scene that we had. I'm looking forward to reconnecting when we have that opportunity in insert amount of time, right? Like however long you think it might take you to process, be that, 12 hours, a day, 3 days, a week, whatever it is that you need. So that way they know, okay, I've gotten this little bit of reassurance. I know that they're not going to abandon me. They don't hate me. Like maybe just give them some kind of really quick sort of reassurance of like, okay, what are their worst fears right now? Are they afraid that I want to leave them, break up with them? I think they're evil. I hate them. I never want to play the game. Like just soothe those like really quick emergency fears. And then after that, you can say, okay, and now I need to take my step back and have my alone time. And maybe it means that you do a day or two of alone time, then you reconnect for a little bit and have that togetherness, and then you separate again for another couple of days till you feel fully grounded again. But there's certainly a lot of room, depending on if you live together, if you have mutual friends, if you have other partners, if they have other partners, tons of room for being able to navigate around this to where maybe you're both not getting what you perfectly would want in an ideal world, but you're going to be getting really close. Yeah. Don't just go distant or disconnect that communication. Yes, exactly. I'm not saying that you should just like no call, no show, ghost them. I'm not saying to do any of that. I think you have to be clear about if you need space or not. And I trust that you are communicating that you need space because you are an intelligent, experienced individual. So I believe that you would know to do that. But also it's good to just give your partner a reminder of that you're doing it intentionally and not to hurt them in some way. All right, I'm going to very briefly, because this is bothering me, I would like to mess with my autofocus. It keeps focusing at my microphone. Oh, is it my microphone that's fucking it up? Okay, my microphone might be fucking it up. All right. No? Okay, sorry. Give me a second. I've had enough of this. How do I fix this? Here we go. Focus area. I think I might have found the problem. Alright. Will that work? Alright. I have it focused to where it should just focus in the area where my face normally is. We're going to pray to Jesus that works. And then if it doesn't, I will commit violence against my camera. No, I will not do that. But I'll think about it in my head. All right. Thank you for the patience. Let's get back to that other super chat question. It's a little bit of a long one. Let me see if I can grab that one. So they asked, my partner and I are both switches. We love it. We love switches. How do we handle power exchange? I am a little. She is my big sis. She's a pup and I'm her handler. Okay, so we have a little handler and big sis pup. Okay. Thing is, I naturally fall into the dominant role with her. So I think it's very common for a lot of submissives or not even submissives, there's a lot of switches do tend to fall into a pattern with a partner, maybe a different switch, maybe a top they have, a bottom that they normally play with, where even when you want to maybe express other parts of your identity or do other things with them, you have one role that tends to be more common. Some switches are just like, they're very hedonistic and they're going to do whatever feels the best in the moment. And it's totally different from day to day, but I think it's much more common for switches to have experiences that are more like yours, where they are doing it and they tend to fall in kind of a pattern with a particular person. Like with you, where I'm assuming that the handler role is more of the dominant role and the little role is more of the submissive role, but obviously you can be a little and be dominant, you can be a handler and be submissive, less common, but obviously in BDSM you can really do whatever you want as long as it's consensual. So if you are falling into the dominant role, is it just more often than you would like it to be? Like you feel like, I'm assuming, because sort of reading between the lines a little bit, it's you naturally fall into the dominant role, but maybe you want to be able to be more of the little submissive or whatever your submissive side is. I think the way that you handle power exchange is you come up with a way to have very clear delineation between what roles you're doing when and when you want to do them. This is something that people do even when they have just like one person's always the master, one person's also always the submissive, where they key each other into where their head's at for if they want to play, if they're feeling disconnected, or maybe they might give their partner like a certain mug, right? Like if they ask you, oh, can you give me a glass of water? Can you give me my coffee? You give them a certain mug to indicate to them in a subtle way that like, oh, they're feeling submissive right now. Like they want me to take charge, or they're feeling dominant right now and they're telling me to fuck off and get my own coffee. Like, you know, or maybe with the case of like, you know, a little big sister thing. Like there's all sorts of flavors of dynamics that work with this. But find subtle ways to kind of cue your partner in on where you want your headspace to go, so that way you're making sure if you want to make more time for that little side. Maybe that means you change the way you dress in the morning, or you have, I don't know, like a sticker chart or something on a whiteboard, or, you know, if you don't live together and you see each other pretty regularly, that might be sending them like a series of emojis in the morning to indicate where your mood's at for the day, right? Where like, if you're in little mode, it's like ribbon emoji, bear emoji, heart emoji, baby bottle emoji, like whatever, right? And then if you're in handler mode, it's like, you know, doghouse, dog, chain, you know, tennis ball or whatever. I'm not even sure all those are emojis, but you know, something to indicate, okay, this is where my headspace is at. And if your partner is feeling different, then you can open up a conversation of where do we want today to go? Where can we meet in the middle? Are we going to both be able to make a compromise here? Or maybe they just go right away. Okay, go, great. I want to do that today anyways. Let's go ahead and go into that mode. And also, it might just end up being that there's a separation between like topping and bottoming and being a dominant and being a submissive. And it might be that your power exchange relationship is naturally one way, but then you take time to top and bottom in individual scenes, or maybe you bottom to them even though in maybe your everyday relationship you're more of the dominant in the relationship. But ultimately, like if you're wanting to have your needs met and they're not being met, I think it's really about creating structure for the power exchange to make that work. That could be subtle signs about where you want to be for that day, and that's it. If you want to have more like rules and protocol, this becomes like a little bit difficult, because then you basically need to have two separate sets of like rules and protocol, one for like when one space is at the forefront and one for when the other space is at the forefront. So that way, okay, you each have something you can rely on for structure. So that way, you know, okay, today I'm doing this and this is the set of rules that are the expectations, and then tomorrow's going to be this. That can be really hard to go between from day to day, but maybe on like a week by week basis. It depends on how often you're like wanting to switch also, because like definitely if you're a switch and you want to do power exchange and it flip-flops every day, that's much more difficult to manage than like several weeks or several months where, you know, you're staying pretty consistent on a day-to-day basis and you're not having to like guess all of the time, right? So it's about indicating headspace. Yes, that is very much, it's not the only thing, but it is one of the most important. Yes, that's it. Okay, awesome. Well, do you have any follow-up questions to that or anything else? I'm not entirely sure I fully answered your question. Is there any area in power exchange that you're like struggling with and you're like, how do I build structure in that, or anything else? I would be happy to follow up and answer any additional questions. But just let me know. Put it in the chat and I'll watch for it. So it's hard when you just only have a very limited amount of text to be able to talk about these things. But I'm glad it sounds like it was really helpful for you. So yeah, definitely just like a very basic maybe contract structure or rule structure of like, you know, when I'm the dominant, this is my expectations for you. And then when you're the dominant, these are the expectations that you have for me. And then like, which one are we going with today, this week, this month, this year? And then just like realize that, especially with switching, there is this, I think, natural kind of back and forth process. The longer you're in a relationship, you'll be able to feel it out more and kind of feel when the tides change from like one mood to the next, but almost always if you're a switch, it's gonna come back around to the other thing eventually. But the most delicate part of being a switch, as I'm sure any switch in this chat can attest to, is finding that balance where both your top or bottom or dom or sub or all of the above needs are all being met in equal measure to find your like perfect happiness. And trying to hit that stride of finding that takes time, but through the course of a relationship, you'll be able to kind of more predict where you want to go, where your partner is kind of headed, and be able to rely more on that subtle, maybe nonverbal communication or very small amounts of communication and tones of voice to be able to go, oh, this is what we're doing today. Brat man. Listen, I actually don't know why that has not been used as a pun more before by brats. The brat man and the brat woman. I would definitely prefer a man to daddy me or poly and non-binary. Oh, yeah, for sure. Being poly and having, like, an outside relationship with somebody and, like, you have a relationship with this one partner where you're the dominant and then somebody else is your dominant, different relationship. That happens all the time. That's very normal. It would just be, you'd have to coordinate to make sure that you could fulfill both sets of obligations without taking away from, like, the other person, right? So if you have a rule for one, and I'm going to use some like sex examples because they're the most like clear cut things that people tend to understand, but your relationship might not be sexual. But I find that oftentimes people that try to do power exchange with multiple partners, especially if they switch with one partner and they're submissive to that person sometimes, but then they're always submissive to a different partner, you might end up in a scenario where like partner one is like, you must always ask me permission before you orgasm. And then the other partner is like, I get to make you come on command or whatever. Like, I've trained you to come on command. Like, it's very easy for those rules to conflict with each other and cause tension between the two dominant partners if they're not also communicating with each other and making sure to not step on any toes, or realizing that their power exchange with you ends when the relationship with the other person begins, right? They can't dom you in your relationship with another person, and their expectations have to be kept in this container of only when the two of you are together. So hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, I can do both. We live separately. Oh, it's sexual. Okay, good. Listen, I'm happy to have any kind of conversation about power exchange people want to have, but sometimes the sex is a big motivator, a big part of power exchange for sure. Not for everyone, not for me, for example. Oh, that's right, my chat's like smaller than it normally is. All right, give me, I feel like I'm just like, I need to take a nap. All right, I'm not a little, but I need to lay down for a little nap. All right, it's been a little hectic today. There we go. Yes, we love the non-binary folks. Everyone is welcome here. We love non-binary people. We love trans people. We love everyone across the gender and sexuality spectrum. I myself am asexual. That's my perspective I come into this stuff with, but I know things. I have approximate knowledge of many things. That's my background. Yes, clear boundaries are very important. But I have lots of videos where I talk about power exchange before and switching and things, so if you haven't seen those, please watch them. They might be helpful. And then I'm sure we have other people in the chat that are switches that have power exchange relationships, and I'm sure they would love to share their advice if they have not already. All right, so I think, did I get through all the questions that were like super chats and stuff? I think I did. All right, so let's move on to some other non-super chat questions. I feel like this is the difference between like the Disney Fast Pass line and the general standby line for questions. However, unlike Disney, I'm gonna not try to like uber fuck my process of making sure people's questions are answered. Is the Folsom prison visitable? I don't know, actually. I know only about the... Wait, do you mean like Alcatraz? Is that what you're thinking of? I think you can go to or Alcatraz. I don't really know a lot about like attractions in California, so I'm not sure about that one. We've entered the dark half of the year. Stay cozy, everyone. I literally have a candle burning. It's very hot. I'm going to try to raise this up carefully. It's just hot everywhere, actually. Anyways, just have faith in me without burning my hands that I have an orange candle that smells like lemon, ginger, saffron, and amber burning right now. It's very fall. We don't have fall weather yet, but that doesn't mean we can't burn the candles because I have a lot of them and I need to make room in my pantry for other things besides candles. So I'm trying to use them up. First time on the stream. Love your channel. Well, thank you so much for being here, Sasha. I'm glad you can make it. Let me know if you have any questions. Will we get a visit from Band tonight? That depends on her. She was a little moody this afternoon. I went to go to the post office, and when I got back, she did this thing where she gets on the ground. She has her little paws on the ground. She looks up at me, and then she gets so excited. She's like vibrating. Then she just lets out a single bark. She's like, "Rawr!" And I'm like, she made a noise. Like, she never, if you guys have seen her, she's very quiet normally. And she let out this, like, very almost, like, halfway between a meow and a dog bark noise because she was so excited I was home. And I was like, what's gotten into you? We're being loud and fussy today. But she is outside. So when she decides to come inside at some point, we may get a visit. Ooh, right. It's the High Holy Days, isn't it, for our Jewish listeners and followers? Rosh Hashanah, and then what's the other thing that comes after this? I should know this. I don't though. Yom Kippur, I think, is next, right? No, I really should just look at a calendar before I start guessing. No, it is, because that's October 4th. I was right. I had the right instinct. Well, that's a big deal. Will it be posted on Patreon? So actually, that's a really good question. So the collaboration sort of contribution, whatever you want to call it, I'm doing another YouTuber. My video I made for them is about 20 minutes long, but they're probably only going to end up using a couple minutes of what I said in their final video because then otherwise it would be really long. So I haven't heard back from them yet, but I did ask if it's okay for me to post my full 20-minute unedited, uncut video contribution to my Patreon, to patrons, because they're not going to use all of it. I can't imagine they're going to say no to that. So it'll probably be on Patreon. I can't say for sure yet because I think, again, I think only a couple minutes are actually going to end up being in the actual final video. But yes. Short answer is probably. Is approximate knowledge an Adventure Time quote? I mean, I did watch that in high school, so maybe that's where I got it from. I'm not sure actually. I do remember the 90s American Dollcore thing that Babes in Toyland is like. Wait, is that a real thing? Okay, I gotta Google this. 90s is it? Because I never had American Dolls growing up. I think I had a neighbor that had one. Is that just when people try to dress up like they're an American Doll? Sounds terrifying. Or is it called Dollcore? Because it's a Tumblr thing, and that's what everything was called on Tumblr. Everything is an aesthetic, if you just believe. By the way, Evie, aren't you glad it's no longer summer and has transformed into spooky and dark seasons? Well, that hasn't happened here yet. I gotta be honest. I have a deep conflict in myself where I love the summer. I love warm weather. I grew up in Florida. I grew up in the South. Having hot weather is just my natural state. I believe my natural habitat is probably I don't know, a swamp. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I'm a little swamp witch. That's what I am. But I'm used to hot weather, so I like that. And my favorite time of year is end of July, really maybe the end of May through October is my favorite part of the year. And I really, really love the very beginning part of the transition to fall. But I also get sad because I know that's going to mean it's going to be dark out by 5 p.m. It just really fucks with my YouTube schedule, honestly. It's really hard to double check a script, script. I don't know why I can't talk today. What's wrong with my voice? I know why. It's because I haven't had any water today. That's why. But it's really hard to like double check a script, wash my hair, do my hairdo, whatever it is I'm doing that day, get all my makeup done, and then film 2 videos that are usually like 40 minutes long by the time I'm done editing them, and have it all done before it gets dark at 5 p.m. It's really hard to do that all in one day. So I don't necessarily like it being really dark out earlier, but I love the fall weather. I love the smells. I love farmers markets and picking apples and pumpkins. I love all of that, but then November hit. Like, basically, the saddest part of the year to me is like January to May. If I could just replace that with like more summer or like a second fall transition, I'd be like, sweet. I'll take that. But I feel like here it goes like winter, summer. Like, there's not really a spring. It's just like cold, wet, 40 degrees, and then you wake up one day and it's 75 and sunny, and there's no in between. Ooh, good question, Ask. Do you have any advice on making DS dynamics work in a triad relationship? Like 1 sub and 2 doms. How to not step on the other dom's toes. Well, that's great, because I kind of already answered this by accident with the other question that got asked earlier. And I have a video, and I don't remember what the title is, but the thumbnail is 2 masters, question mark, and it's something like, can you have 2 masters in BDSM? Can you have 2 dominants? Something like that. And I'm not sure what else to look for it with, but I know I've made a video about this. But essentially, I think what you have to do to make this work is either, like, option 1 is if you have like a triangular triad relationship where the 2 dominant partners are in their own relationship with each other, and they can like co-dom you together and like work together as a team or as a unit to dom you in like the way that like parents work with a child. I'm not saying that they should be like your parents, but in the way that like parents are like supposed to be this unified front of like enforcement and standards and rules for children, you know, barring divorce or single parenthood, things like that, right? You have this sort of like front of like, you know, both of your parents say, you know, no cookies after midnight, right? You don't have one parent saying cookies after 9 p.m. are, you know, a no-go, and one parent saying you have cookies for breakfast. Like, you know, you have to have something where there's consistent structure, rules, and expectation, because if you don't have that, you're either going to get a scenario where, again, there's always confusion, or, I'm not saying you would do this as a submissive, but kind of going back to the parent analogy, the person is always going to the parent that's the most lenient for whatever it is they're looking to do. So there is kind of that co-topping, co-parenting, co-doming scenario of more of a equilateral triad. But if you have a V triad where, so there's like closed triangle, right? So these 2 people in a relationship, they're in a relationship, and that's like a closed triad or like a triangular triad. And then open triad or a V triad would be, you know, this person has a relationship with this and with this, but these 2 people don't have a relationship with each other. And okay, I think I see a question about bratting. Love to talk about that. Gonna answer this question first, but I love it. So this is basically a little bit hard to navigate, because if these 2 people want to stay very separated from each other, it's very hard to make sure you're not stepping on toes here without putting an undue burden on that like pivot partner, mutual partner, whatever phrase you want to use for that, or, you know, the submissive that they both share. I don't really know if I like saying that they share you, but maybe that's a hot word for you. I don't know. And I think at bare minimum, if it's a V triad where they don't really want to maintain contact, you have to all be willing to sit down and talk to each other at least like once in a really detailed way about what are each of our DS dynamics going to look like, and how do we make sure they don't step on each other's toes, as you said, right? Because if one partner is going to say, well, I want you to be able to come on command when I have sex with you, and the other partner is like, well, I want you to always ask permission before you come with me or with anyone, like that's really not going to work. So you have to set up expectations of either we're going to have our rules meshed together to where they don't ever overlap, right? There's never competing rules that you're going to have to choose between this one or that one, and one is always going to fail as a result of choosing the other one. And you just make it so like, okay, this partner is more like maybe more of my caregiver, right? And they get to dictate my, when I wake up, they dictate, how many times I brush my teeth, and I show them my meals, or they tell me I have to drink at least 60 ounces of water a day, like whatever it is, like this partner does that kind of dominance. And then maybe with your other dominant partner, maybe it's like really sexual, or maybe it's very sadistic, or maybe you mostly do your dominance in person, in private. You don't really have an ongoing rule structure. Like, so you can either have it be where their dominant styles are very different and they naturally wouldn't overlap that much, or if they are more similar and maybe you have a kind of particular style of dominance that you want, and so it kind of just ends up being similar, then I think you have to have more of a negotiation where, one, if you have expectations for one partner, they have to be the same with other partner. So like if you have the rule that I have to show my partner my outfit before I leave the house, okay, well now you have to do that with both of them. Or you have to agree that the other one is okay not being involved in that decision, and it's only up to the other person. Or, alternative, you have it be so both partners are your dominant partners, but only in a limited capacity. And that can mean that one partner is your dominant Monday through Friday, one partner is like, it's like a joint custody agreement of dominance, where it's like, okay, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, this is my partner who's my dom. The other days of the week, this is my other partner who's my dom. Or weekends or weekdays, or when I'm at their house, they're my dominant. Or when when they come to my house, then they're my dominant, right? Where maybe it's more driven by who you're currently sharing space with, and their dominance only happens when you're in person in a very direct way. So there's lots of ways to navigate that. Ultimately, it comes down to your partners have to be willing to talk to each other at least a little bit, but ideally enough to be able to know how to get both of their needs met, while also realizing that you are going to be dominant over, you're going to have to be submissive to both of them simultaneously, and that is going to be more complicated than one person, always submitting to, one partner and never having to worry about other people. Like, for myself, when I did live with a partner that I had a power exchange relationship with, I was also polyamorous, and I was also exploring, like, BDSM and power a little bit with other people. And the way that that would work is, like, they were my 24/7 partner, and they were always my dom, but the other relationships that I had, the power exchange or the play I did with them only lasted for that scene, or only in that bedroom, or whatever it was, because that was what my other partners wanted. So naturally, I never really stepped on each other's toes, because they each wanted different things out of having a power exchange relationship with me, and that didn't really cause any conflict on that front, at least. But it's complicated. It can be done. Some people will say you can't really be submissive to two people, blah, blah, blah. And I just don't think that's true. Like, if you're a poly person, it's one thing if you're monogamous, okay, I kind of get that. But if you're poly and you have multiple partners, I think it's totally possible to be submissive to multiple people. And actually, and I should have asked her about this, I did an interview with Dan and Dawn Williams, and you guys have not seen it yet, but it will be coming out maybe at the end of October. And they are the authors of a book called Living MS. And I didn't realize this, at least I didn't remember it, but they literally hit the ground running. They both got out of divorces. They were recently divorced. They saw each other, and then right away they started doing power exchange, and they started doing poly after both previously only ever being monogamous. So they really just like ramped it up into like, advanced territory, to be sure, with their relationship in a way that I don't think most people would be successful at, but it did work for them. And the reason I bring that up is because Dawn is very adamant that a non-power exchange relationship does not work for her. She does not want a vanilla relationship. So even though she is a slave and has a master she has a 24/7 total power exchange relationship with, she also has other partners that she submits to, but they're limited in other ways because of the fact that she does have this master that she is collared to, that she does live with and is entangled with in this particular way, but she is still able to have other relationships with other people that are also dominant towards her. So, all right, let's get to some other questions here. Now I got two. Let's see, yeah, there we go. Kiwi Space says, for the Evie and brats, are there different styles of bratting? If so, what is your style of bratting? Favorite punishment when in brat mode? Oh. Favorite punishment when in... Oh, like a punishment I would give a brat? Or how I would punish my dom if I was acting like a brat. If you can make a BDSM movie, show, or book, what would be the plot? What type of submissive would you have? What type of dominant? Okay. I'm going to answer the second one first because I think that's a little bit of a shorter answer because I have thought about this. And I'm going to say, obviously, I would really like to write, and I may possibly have plans in the works to write some educational BDSM books. All right, I'm not going to say I've been talking to publishers, but I might be talking to publishers, all right? So I would like to write some educational BDSM materials, but if I was making something that was erotica, like my dream, if I could literally write whatever I wanted and I didn't have to just do education, which is not a burden for me, to be clear. I like educating people, but if I had the complete freedom to do whatever I wanted and have confidence that people would actually read it, I would definitely do a realistic BDSM erotica. And I would definitely look for things that people generally like in their BDSM fiction, right? Sort of, I'd look at tropes and see how I could make them work in a framework where it was like, this is actually what going to a dungeon is like. This is actually what it's like to find, it would still be like, it's two people that meet and they have this really strong connection and they instantly are really drawn to each other and they really want to have this DS relationship. Like, it would have those kind of elements to it that a lot of people like from like erotica tropes, but it would still be like, this is meant to be realistic. This is what it's like to be a dominant or a submissive. And I would want there to be elements of going to BDSM parties, going to private events, things that actually felt real and could be used as representations of this is something that you might be able to expect at a dungeon, or this is, a realistic way that people play. Not like, oh my god, he touched my left nipple and then I had the best orgasm of my life, which is like how erotica tends to go, is like somebody gets their nipple touched and they like explode. And it's like, that's not, why the nipples? Why always the nipples? That's my question. So I would really like to do that, where I would have a submissive character that actually previously had BDSM experience. Like, the idea I had in my head is I wouldn't want someone that maybe had like necessarily like a background history of trauma, because I wouldn't want to have that, like, that's a lot of baggage to put on a fictional character. So I would want to have a submissive that they had previously done BDSM. Maybe they had had like a college boyfriend or something and they had kind of played around a bit, and maybe they as a submissive really wanted to go farther and were like really into it, and their partner was like, oh my god, this is hot for the bedroom, but like it's like disgusting and like I would basically use like the previous ex-boyfriend as like, here's examples of like all the shit people say about like lifestyle BDSM being like bad and gross and wrong, even though they sexually enjoy kink for the bedroom, right? Like, it would be this a scenario, maybe she kind of was like, oh, I guess I can't really have what I want in a relationship, and they kind of pack it away and they graduate from school, they get started in a career, and they really start to, and I would want to have them be in like a professional field. Ideally, I would like to have them in a field that is traditionally a masculine field, just to sort of buck trends and that, not working for a fucking fashion magazine or whatever. Like, I would want them to have a job that was, powerful and required them to be intelligent and smart and like driven about their career, not just like, I'm waiting for my dom to come save me one day. Like, I would want them to, you know, sort of that strong, independent stereotype, but not just to be strong and independent, but just to show that, like, submissives come in all shapes and sizes and can have all different backgrounds. So I want to have a submissive that maybe had other BDSM experience, but it went kind of negative. They put it away for a while, and then they find this person that suddenly, like, totally unlocks these feelings again for the first time, and it's really sudden and kind of scary. They don't really know how to deal with it. And then for a dominant partner, I am really drawn to the idea of a dominant partner who's, like, an eccentric artist. Like, some guy that got, like, really famous for, like, painting sunsets or some shit, right? Like he went, like, mega viral on like, I don't know, not DeviantArt, but, like, Twitter or TikTok or something. They got really, really, really famous for some sort of paintings. They got bought right by, like, the royal family. They ended up in, like, the Tate Modern. He's all of a sudden this, like, weird artist guy becomes a bajillionaire, because I do want to include, I want to include the bajillionaire trope in there at some point, right? That he's just, like, crazy rich, but also it's not because he's, like, like a capitalistic CEO asshole. It's because he, like, got insanely rich from, like, selling impressionistic paintings of, like, a picnic, like, at sunset or something. Like, just, like, completely, like, he's just like, I don't really know how much I made of this money. I kind of just, like, trust my investors. And that's, like, that's what it is. He just is like, I don't really know what's in my bank account. I just let my investors take care of it. That would be deeply funny to me. So it's kind of like eccentric artist, dominant type, and then you have this more, like, kind of grounded, logical, like, submissive, sort of going in the opposite direction again of what people sort of emotionally expect from dominants and submissives, where submissives are supposed to be emotional and soft and all this other stuff. And then you have the dominant partner really be the emotional, soft, and artistic one, and it's the submissive that's more sort of the logical minded, financially minded person who's like, maybe we should check on your portfolio. Can I do that for you, master? Like, I just think that would be really entertaining. So that's sort of my answer of what I would want for that. As far as them, like, you know, brat, little, rope bunny, whatever, I haven't really thought that far into what I would want to write. I think I would want to have different characters in, like, the background. Like, I don't think I'd have, like, my main couple be poly, but I would love to have, like, maybe her best friend is poly, or maybe, you know, they know other people in lifestyle who are poly. Like, I would definitely want to have representations of other types of relationships and queer relationships and different ways of being a submissive, just to have those examples. But that's kind of the ballpark of what I've been thinking about. I hope that sounds anywhere near interesting. Not a question, just wanted to say I'm writing a comic and I named a cool bookstore in it after you. If you don't mind, can't think of Lupine without thinking education. Thank you so much for everything you do. Oh, that's so awesome. I love that. And also, congrats on making a comic. I dated someone in high school, or not high school, actually college, that did sequential art, and they were making a comic version of a Lovecraft novel when I was dating them, and it was a lot of work, so I feel you on that. Sounds like Shirley, but only for an artist instead of for a philanthropist. That name sounds familiar. Shirley. Oh, it's Legend of Korra. Okay, I've barely watched Legend of Korra, if that's who it is, and maybe there's a real person that's named Shirley, but I don't know. I'm actually not sure. I'm not sure. Shirley regularly deals with her boss's eccentric demands with stoic efficiency. Yes. Exactly. Maybe not completely stoic. Like, I would have both partners be, like, romantic and affectionate and everything. It wouldn't just be, like, logic brain, emotion brain, but there would still be, I think, this subversion of this idea of, like, dominants are cold and distant and emotional and non-emotional and totally logical, and submissives are, you know, they're always falling apart and they're overly emotional, they're overly soft, and, you know, all those things that people say all the time. All right, so the second question, or which is really the first question, is for brats, are there different styles of bratting? If so, what's your style of bratting? favorite punishment when in brat mode. So I love it because brats are very underrepresented as a member of the kink population. It's unfair. I think that brats are perfectly reasonable, acceptable. I feel like I have to start with that because whenever brats come up, somebody in the chat, somebody in a comment later is like, brats aren't real submissives. Brats are just fake subs and they're just topping from the bottom, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I don't know who died and made you God Emperor of BDSM, but like that's not how that works. Like lots of people have brat relationships that are happy, healthy, fulfilling, all of the good, wonderful things. So I would say that for bratting, there's, I don't know if I'd call them styles. I'm not sure what label I would use for this, but there are definitely different approaches to bratting depending on, one, what the intention of your bratting is, and two, what kind of dynamic you have, right? Like there are people who are little that brat. There are people that are like kitten players that brat. There are people that are service subs that brat. There are people that are slaves that brat. There are people that, maybe I'm trying to think of some other like common submissive tropes. There are people that are like princesses and brat. There are people that are just pure brats and all they do is brat. There are masochistic brats. There are brats that are, you know, anything across the range from like, the phrase that came to mind is like, Daddy, you smell stinky. Like somebody that just says something that like a 4-year-old would say. That's like completely like, it's not a bad word. It's not really an insult. It's just like the most childish thing that you could say. And then the opposite side of the coin is like, you hit like a girl. Could you hit harder than that? Or is that even possible for you? Like somebody that just like is asking for a beating. Like somebody that wants to be put in line. And there's sort of like the sassy approach is a little bit more of kind of like, I don't know, like middle school bully, I guess, is another trope you could do. But definitely different styles. Definitely different approaches to it. And there are brats that kind of want different things from their bratting, which is sort of a different way of thinking about style, right? There's brats that want to be like chased down and tackled. There's brats that want to be, you know, ignored and put in a corner. There are brats that want to be like severely physically punished. There are brats that want to get a stern talking to. There are brats that, you know, want to have the like, you know, son, I'm really disappointed in your behavior today. I really think that I raised you better than that, and I can't believe you would represent this family by not returning your library book on time. Like, just like, very like Leave It to Beaver educational 50s television show episode of just all the tropes, all the 50s tropes. So there are different styles in that regard, and I think people that are like masochistic brats and people that are little brats are probably the most common. I can't speak for everyone, but most brats typically have some layer of some flavor of masochism in there. I don't really have a style of bratting personally because I am not a brat. I don't brat. I'm not really into that. The closest I get is when I'm in like a very playful mood. I can be a little bit sassy in terms of like, you know, kind of in like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, like sort of way with my partner where I'm intentionally kind of provoking them to want to be more dominant, but not in like a rule breaking way, not in a, you know, talking back kind of a way, just sort of being like physically flirtatious and sassy is what I would say, but not generally anything verbal to the extent that a lot of brats tend to do. When it comes to the best punishment for a brat, that really depends on the individual brat because as I just said, there are lots of different motivators for a brat, and you either want to do what the brat wants if you like the brat and want to make them happy, or if you want to actually punish a brat and tell them they've actually really gone out of line and to not do that again, then you have to do the opposite of whatever they want to do. So if you have a masochistic brat, that what they're looking for is harsh physical discipline. They want to be spanked, caned, paddled until they're like screaming, no, please stop. Then, in order to actually punish them, your sort of wheel, you know, your chart, you know, the color wheel, but for punishments, right? What's the opposite color on the color wheel? What's the opposite punishment from physical punishment that's very up close and personal? Cold, distant, ignoring them. So that's when you make them go to their room, or put them in a corner, or give them the cold shoulder for a day, or whatever it is, right? You know, be very careful, because this can be very upsetting to people that have a history of like abandonment problems or issues or trauma. Don't do any of this without negotiating first, please. But as an example, that is something you can do. If you're dealing with a brat where what they're looking for is physical reassurance, right? Or verbal reassurance for that matter, where they want to be like taken to task, and they want to, you know, have you kind of blow up at them verbally and tell them, why are you, like, almost kind of going into humiliation territory of like, why are you being so fucking stupid? Shut up, you dumb brat, blah, blah, blah. Like they're provoking you into like, you know, getting set off verbally. What's the opposite of that on the color wheel of punishment? Have them write an apology letter to you. You say nothing. They have to do all of the words and all of the writing. They have to write lines. They have to write a 4-paragraph essay explaining the error of their ways. They have to write a heartfelt handwritten apology note. Like, whatever it is you want to do, think about the opposite if what you're doing is an actual punishment and not a punishment where you're doing something that's actually fun and enjoyable for the brat, which is a different thing. It's complicated. The language overlaps. It's confusing. But yes, and thank you for the reminder. Yes, if you guys are enjoying this stream, go ahead and give it a like. It does help people find the stream, because apparently, I find out today, this blew my mind. Based on my average viewership for Twitch, which is like usually 20 to 30 people, I'm in the top 3% of streamers on Twitch. Which is crazy to me. That is nuts. I was like, wow, when I got like 35 people watching me the last time I played Cyberpunk, I was like a top 2% streamer. Like, that was nuts. So it's very hard to grow on streaming, on YouTube, on Twitch, and legitimately, apparently, liking the video actually works. I don't know why, but it does. So great question, Ash, and I hope that helped answer your question. And then for Kiwi, I hope that also helped answer your question. So, all right, moving on. Next question. Yes, FAQ, got that below. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't even see that you had a part 2 to your question, Ash. I have 2 dominant partners. We're in a triad relationship. We are running into a lot of problems with each of them feeling like I'm not respecting them and that I defer to the other more. Oh no. Okay. That really sucks. So I have not been in this position myself, so I can't really give any personal advice about how I've handled that scenario on my own. But I feel like you have to have a 3-way conversation where it's like, I feel like my impression from that is that's not like a BDSM problem. That's like a poly problem. That is a very common problem for poly people, because, oh my gosh, you're spending so much time with them. You know, you like them more. You love them more than me. You want to spend more time with them. And that's when you get into this, like, calendarification. I'm making up a word. You get into the calendarification of your life, where suddenly everyone's like Excel spreadsheeting every moment that they spend with you in order to make sure that your attention is perfectly equally divided, where it's like, well, I saw that you went on a lunch date with John on Tuesday, and then on Thursday you went to a movie, and then on Sunday you went to his house and you had sex, and then you only spent time with me on this day of the week, and then we only saw a movie once in the past month, and yada. And people try to litigate in like an insane level of detail to make sure the relationships are equal in this way that like no relationship can ever really be perfectly equal. So I guess I'm saying this to indicate to you that I think this is solvable, maybe not even with BDSM tools, but with just like baseline polyamorous knowledge of like, how do you make sure that both people that are in a V triad that are not the hinge partner, how do you make sure they're both feeling like they are getting their individual needs met for time and for respect? And I think you have to be very clear about what each of your expectations are with your other relationship, if that makes sense. So if you have an expectation that when you are with your one dominant partner, that your phone is off and you're fully engaged with them, your other partner cannot expect you to answer a text message in 5 minutes. Like, that's just not going to happen. That's not going to be physically possible. And generally, we do try to be physically present with our partners in the limited amount of time that we have with them. So if you're seeing one partner Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and the other partner Saturday, Sunday, Friday, then of course the days might be equal, but for the other person that's being ignored on the other 3 days of the week, then they're going to feel like you are not maybe respecting them. But I feel like if you are listening to their rules, if you are using their forms of address as they prefer, if you are remembering your yeses and your pleases and your no ma'ams and your yes sirs or whatever it is, if you are doing that, then I don't really think it's a respect problem so much as it is a sharing problem with two partners in a V triad. And that is a very common issue. And again, I haven't really been in a triad relationship like this other than where like COVID rules have come into it, where different partners had different expectations, like early on during COVID about like, you know, spending time together and masking and forming a bubble. And like, that was just a really, really, really big mess to try and navigate all of that. But I feel like if it's like, oh, I'm like, if you are literally not actually deferring to the other person more, I think either got to be really clear about breaking up who has control or say in certain areas of your life. Make it so you were only dominant or submissive with them when you're actually physically seeing them, or really limit those areas of overlap to make sure that they're not going to be stepping on each other's toes. But like, there's not really a good way to make sure that you're 100% always going to be deferring to the other person exactly the same amount as you're deferring to the, like, I don't really know how that's even possible. Like, again, you can't perfectly divide up your time to make sure it's like this week you spent 20.3 hours with partner A, and then partner B you spent 20.3. Like, that's not possible. It's not how life works. I think there has to be, and I would encourage them to maybe see it as like, you are trying your best as a submissive to both of them to make sure that they both feel respected, and that you are trying your best within the guidelines that they have given you to defer to the partner that needs to be deferred to based on what your obligations are in that moment. And maybe you just have to revisit what those obligations are and what they look like. We use apps for a dom and sub relationship. Yeah, there are definitely apps that you can use. There's like, what is it called? It has like the collar icon. I can't remember what it is. But I did a review of it a while ago, actually. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything I could say that's... I mean, I'm sure I could just Google, like, how do you make sure both partners feel respected in, like, a poly relationship? And I feel like the answer is just, like, the very cliche. Have a conversation with everyone. Have very clear communications of boundaries and limitations and expectations. And then they have to do their own emotional work as dominant partners to realize, okay, is this you legitimately not obeying the foundation of our power exchange relationship? Or is this me feeling insecure in my dominance and worried that the other partner is more dominant than me? Because even outside of poly relationships, even outside of any sort of relationship, a lot of dominants have a lot of trouble doing like co-topping scenes because they are very worried about the other partner being more dominant in just the scene. They're very worried, like, oh my gosh, what if my partner really likes the other person more? What if I can't get as into the scene as them? What if blah, blah, blah? What if they're hotter than me? Like, they get very paranoid about actually being as dominant. And so instead of, like, having it be a scene about how wonderful your connection is, it ends up being a scene about, like, out-doming the other dom, and that's boring. That is not fun to be a part of as a submissive, because then you're just like, a canvas for their competition, which if you're into objectification could be totally hot, but for most of us it's probably not really that hot. So it is a thing. And so yeah, I'm gonna think about this kind of in the back of my head maybe for a little bit longer, and if anyone has any thoughts to share, please do, and maybe we'll get back to it in a minute. Yeah, you can also like talk in a group like all together, pretty much all you can do. Yeah, I think the dominant partners need to do some legwork in making sure they're on the same page with each other, and not just like, this is a like, you can't always be the through person, right? This is, and I meant to say this before, but I didn't. It's very common in Triad relationships to always have the hinge partner do all of the conversation between the two shared partners, right? Like, Amy said this and Beth said this, and then you go to Amy and tell Amy what Beth, and then tell Beth, you know, blah blah blah, and then you go back to the person, you say the opposite, and then you go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and that not only is very exhausting, it is literally a game of telephone. And as we all know from our childhoods, telephone, obedience, thank you, yes, it's the obedience app. As we know from childhood games of telephone, that is very difficult to actually be accurate with when you do it often enough. So I think, and I'm not saying as a submissive that you should come out and say, you know what, John, you really got to be better about talking to Martha, or like whatever their names are. But you have to encourage them to go, hey, I really want to be submissive to both of you. I think we're really having a lot of tension, and I believe that it might be better for all of us if you guys also felt comfortable communicating to each other about what you both want from your relationship with me, to make sure that nobody's getting their toes stepped on. So, yeah. That is their obligation as dominants, to make sure that they're not putting all of the burden of fixing everything on you. But that's my 2 cents. Help, I'm very new to Shibari and have been tying myself up using basic designs. I have no actual rope and have been using paracords to live with my family. I'm 21, not underage. However, I would like to know what types of ropes are good for Shibari beginners, or great for Shibari beginners. From what I know about myself, I prefer a softer feel, so soft rope recommendations would be great. So even just like basic paracord is fine, but if you want to step up your game, you do have a couple of different options. So if you want soft rope, there would be MF. It's a very loud car outside. It's messing with my ability to talk over it. So one option would be MFP, which is monofilament polypropylene or something. And you can get that from a shop called Agreeable Agony. They have an Etsy shop. They also have their own website. It comes in lots of colors. So if you are a little or a brat and you like kind of colorful stuff, they do for a very cheap price and in a way that maybe would be easier to explain to your family than, like, you know, a natural fiber rope. Yeah, they do have lots of colors. It is very affordable. There is another company called Knothead Nylon, and it's spelled like how it sounds, like it's knot, like a knot in rope, and then head, Knothead Nylon. I don't have as much experience with that individual person, so I can't give you any recommendations on that, but from what I remember having interacted with it at like a convention or something, I do remember it being fairly soft. However, one of the problems, especially if you are tying with other people, with those types of ropes, it's not that they're like bad. It's just that because of the fact they're not natural fibers, they tend to burn more easily on your skin. So if you're using it very quickly, if you're tying yourself really fast, you might find you get more of a burning feeling on the top of your skin that generally people find to be relatively unpleasant. So that's one thing to consider. Now for soft rope, I do have an example. Give me one moment. I'm going to disappear off screen. Wow. Can't see me now, can you? I have returned. Are you surprised? All right. I pulled this out last time. Pulling it out again. So I want to give you guys some examples. I hope this will not mess up my camera. But so this is jute. This is jute rope. This is, where's this one from? This one is from, I had to smell it to remember where it was from. That's how my brain works. So this is from, I think it's Amatsunawa is what it's called. And it is a purpose-made for Shibari jute rope. This one, if you guys can here, I'll put it next to my, guys hear that? Rope ASMR time. This one is oiled, and it is, I think it's waxed like sumac wax or something. It's vegan. This one is, it's soft for a jute rope, but it is still sort of dry and grass-like. This will get softer over time as you use it, but straight out of the box, it is not what most people would call a soft rope. Because, as you guys can maybe see the difference, right? When I stand these two up, this stays pretty firm, right? This one stays up. This one flops over entirely. This one is a linen hemp. This one is from S&M Rope. This is a UK-based company. They recently got purchased by a company that's based out of Normandy. So it's no longer in the UK, which actually I'm happy about because Bruce S&M, who owns the company, is kind of a conservative asshole. So okay, good. The people who own his company now and sell his rope now make gags, and they're in France. So okay. But this is a linen hemp rope, and this one is much softer. You guys hear the difference? Here, I'll do them next to each other. So, this is the jute, and here's the linen hemp. And the reason I like linen hemp is because it is, as you can see, out of the box, no conditioning. This is fully conditioned. This has oil in it and everything. No conditioning, no maintenance, very soft. Linen is far less likely to cause allergies than either jute or hemp rope because it's like linen, like the linen you would get for a shirt. And it is very lightly grassy smelling, but not in a barnyard way where your family would smell it coming out of your room or something. However, because this is from the UK, it is fairly expensive. So this is not something I would necessarily recommend to a beginner, but there is a company, I don't have an example from them right now, right here, but there's a company in the US that is called Twisted Monk. And by the way, in my FAQ, I do have a link below to my full FAQ, and in that is either a link, lots of links. My full FAQ does have a link to a complete resource list of all of the places around the whole world that you guys can buy rope from. So I would look for that, but in any case, Twisted Monk does sell other hemp rope, but this I would recommend if you're looking for a soft rope that's not going to burn. It's going to last you really, really well throughout your whole journey. It feels nice. It's not going to burn your skin. It doesn't really smell like anything at all, and it's just good quality is what I would say. And also, it's not shiny. It's not shiny in the way that nylon rope is if you want to take pretty pictures. You don't want to let bounce back on your camera. So anyways, jute, linen hemp, very, very different looking, different applications. For me, I have sort of developed liking having both a hemp kit and a jute kit because I find the use cases are very different. Now, I am doing a video this month for Patreon. I'm waiting on one more thing in the mail where I am doing a more detailed comparison of all of basically the best rope in the world. What is across Europe, South Africa, America, Canada, what is the best quality rope that you can buy that is hemp, linen hemp, or jute, and comparing them and showing you guys the difference and talking about how they feel, how they handle, and just giving you guys an overview because I find that in America, a lot of people don't really know about the European brands, Australian brands, South African brands, and I have people that are international that's well, I could buy from America, but I'm in Europe, so what can I get in Europe that's good? Or things like that. So I am going to be doing a full comparison on my Patreon for this month for the $10 plus tier of different types of rope, which is a very quick example of just 2 different types of rope. as a representation of both jute and hemp. These are some of the differences. Different people are going to like different things, right? A lot of people really like jute because it looks really nice on camera. It's traditional. It tends to be very compact when you tie with it. It tends to be something that, for me, it feels a little bit drier, a little bit more coarse on the skin at first, which some people can like enjoy more masochistically. Other people like hemp or linen hemp because it's softer, it's a little bit stronger, and it does have a little bit of a grassy smell, which as a horse girl, I can appreciate the slightly grassy smell of hemp. However, it is not as compact, and it tends to, as you guys can it tends to aesthetically not be considered as pretty for photos, but that is different people's opinions on those two things. That's my answer about rope. But yeah, lots of different price ranges, lots of different sort of wherever you're at for your entry point and what you want for your rope journey. Even just getting like 2-3 hanks of rope would be worth it. I've never done a scene with, well, I think I've done a scene before where I did like nylon or something for like a crotch rope because you can wash it. But I don't think I've done like a full scene where it's had like multiple types of rope because I haven't really had partners that tie with jute. I've really only tied with people that tie with hemp because Twisted Monk is based out of Seattle. I lived in Seattle. Everyone bought his rope. So it was pretty rare for me to find someone in Seattle, at least that tied with jute that I played with. Should I have treated my hemp rope in some way? I found it didn't take long before hairs were floating in the air and up noses. That's actually very common with hemp. You don't need to do any kind of treatment to hemp. Actually, controversial take. I sort of follow the pseudo jute approach to hemp or to jute rope, which is you shouldn't be breaking the rope, burning it, singeing it. All of that is causing, or baking it, all of that is causing mechanical and or chemical damage to your fiber, which is making an already weak rope weaker in unknown ways that you can't measure. So I am very much of the opinion the only thing you should really be doing to jute rope, if you want to be as safe as possible with it and you want to use it for like suspension, putting any kind of pressure or anything, I really think the only thing you should be doing is oiling it and maybe waxing it. Or using a rope butter that combines like, the wax and the oil together. That's really the thing I think you should be doing to jute. And then with hemp, this doesn't need anything. You don't really need to condition this. I actually don't know anyone who conditions hemp rope, that sells conditioned hemp rope. From what I understand, and I'll try to see if I can find it on the Twisted Monk website, having hairs and fuzzies come off of new hemp rope is not uncommon. So Twisted Monk does say they process their rope with a vegan-friendly oil, but I think they literally just buy like raw hemp. So usually with jute rope, what people do is after they buy it, or even after they've cut it even into different lengths, they will take basically like a cloth, put a little oil on the cloth, and rub the oil over the jute. And it'll basically like soak it right up if you're using like the proper kind of oil. People don't really do that with hemp. So I don't think they're meaning that they do that same kind of process. I think they when they're spinning it, I think that they probably incorporate some kind of oil in it. But let me see. I swear I remember seeing something about where'd is this? Oh, okay, so there is a rope care. There's a rope care page. Let me see if I can find that. Where'd it go? I literally just had it. Okay. Sample pack, sample pack. Okay, rope care. Rope gets softer and weaker with use. A well-loved piece of rope will resemble your favorite pair of jeans. The weave relaxes and the fibers become more supple. Frequent washing will accelerate this process and can reduce the overall tensile strength. For most bondage uses, repeated washings are just fine and your rope will last you for years. However, if you intend to use your rope for load-bearing play, such as suspension bondage, then you need to be extra careful using older, laundered rope. Hemp rope is fairly easy to maintain and typically doesn't need much tending to unless it gets particularly dirty. Re-oiling is only necessary if the rope has been washed because during use the rope will absorb your natural body oils, keeping it soft and supple. We suggest storing your rope in loose coils or braids. So, yes. If you want to wash your rope or if you want to remove some of the fuzzies, I do know people that will put their rope in basically like a garment bag and put it on the gentle cycle of a dryer, and that'll kind of agitate it and remove some of the fuzz, but I wouldn't recommend doing that if you want to have like load-bearing rope or if you want to do anything with suspension. But I do know some people that do that. But yes, basically shedding and fuzziness is like common. It does happen quite frequently. Oh my gosh, thank you, Todd. Evie, I just need to say that I learn so much every time I listen, and I credit you for me finally taking the step to get off the websites, and tomorrow I'm going to my first month. You're truly awesome. Oh, congrats, Todd. That's so amazing. Thank you so much. I am so glad that my videos could help you, and I hope you have a great time at your first month. That's so exciting. Ooh, exciting. How fun. Okay, I think I answered the question about how to manage power dynamics in a switch relationship. Yeah, I think I might go for some jute next time. Thank you for answering my query. Yeah, for sure. I think a couple people asked about rope. Yeah, and I'll just go ahead. I'll pop a link to, let me see. This is the rope care page from Twisted Monk, so that should work. There we go. All right, let me get on to some other questiones. I'm thinking about writing some BDSM erotica tonight and tomorrow. Any suggestions? I feel like brats and bondage are kind of like the theme for today. It's like Dungeons and Dragons, but it's brats, or it would be bondage and brats, I guess, because brats are like dragons more than they're like dungeons. Guess the Shibari question. More DDLG and littles and ABDL people are being made fun of online. How do you feel about that? Do you think there is a way to ban the bullies? It seems like most content creators are leaving because maybe of the hate comments and the videos poking fun at their lives. I mean, I'm not really enough of a part of that community to really say like if people are being forced off of platforms because of bullying or not. Is there like, I know there was a Vice video that came out that talked about ABDL, and maybe some people saw that and got mad about it, but I feel like there hasn't recently been like a wave of like people reacting to like DDLG content or anything like that. But of course, people are always going to be hater ass bitches. That's what they're going to be. They're going to be haters. They're going to say mean shit. They're going to be like, oh my God, you're awful, you're the worst. And I totally get not wanting to subject yourself to that, especially as a smaller creator, when you don't really have the wherewithal that comes from doing this over a longer period of time and having like a really strong, large enough core audience to where you feel secure talking about stuff to people that are, you know, are going to understand what you say, as opposed to people that are like, oh my God, what a weird little like freak. I feel like there's always like cycles of this. I feel like there are always cycles of people that are into like pet play, DDLG, whatever, and a bunch of people will come on and like start making YouTube videos and start posting stuff, and then like something happens and it kind of goes away and then it comes back. And I feel like pet play kind of just like died. I feel, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I feel like especially online pet play, because that was very much based on like Instagram, and Instagram has gotten so hardcore about all of the rules related to like nudity and BDSM. It's gotten really hard to be a content creator on Instagram. Like if I was a content creator now, like if I had started a couple years later being on Instagram, like I would not be able to have a career because my account would have been deleted before I ever had a sizable enough audience to start making YouTube videos. So I do think that that is a problem. I don't really think there's a way to ban all of the bullies. I do know that there is I don't know if it's a website, a tool, exactly what you would call it, but there is a website that is called Bot Sentinel, and they currently have a tool for Twitter for basically like chain blocking known bad actor accounts, like people that make spam accounts, people that just troll with their accounts, and being able to block people. I think there's also Shinigami Eyes as well. That's, I think, more for transphobia, but like the people that are like anti-DDLG and people that are transphobic is probably like there's a sizable overlap there, so that might be helpful. But those aren't really for YouTube, that's for Twitter. But I do think that Bot Sentinel is working on a similar application for YouTube to where it'll be easier to block users proactively, so that way they can't comment on your stuff and leave like hateful things. I do recommend for content creators, if they don't know this, you can go to your settings, and I can't remember exactly which thing it's under, but I do know that you can go through and modify stuff and make it so certain words are banned. So you can ban like pedophile, disgusting, whatever, like swear words, everything that YouTube might not immediately catch. You can make more filters to make it less likely that people are going to leave that more, you know, hateful stuff. But I do try to stick up for littles. I do try to stick up for people that are into DDLG or ABDL, even though I'm not part of that. I personally, on my own content related to ABDLs or DDLGs, I have not really seen an uptick in like hateful comments or people trolling. Though that's only my own experience, those videos aren't new. I am doing an interview with an ABDL. It's also a Switch, who's also a mommy. Hopefully sometime in early October. We don't have a firm date yet. It's actually my last interview that I'm doing, that I have planned so far, at least. I may have, maybe I'll do more people, I don't know. But I am doing an interview with an ABDL very soon here, and maybe I should ask her about that, because I do know that she is a content creator online, and she has like a Twitter account and stuff. So she must have found some way to deal with like online harassment that worked for her to be able to stay on platforms that she's on. But yeah, it sucks. It does suck, that is for sure. It's been sad to see a bunch of YouTube people leaving. I mean, it does really suck when your like favorite content creators don't feel safe posting content anymore, and they're like, hey, I can't keep doing this. Like, that is for sure rough. For sure. Bondage and Brats is the name of the new cartoon. Listen, I don't think it is. But I haven't trademarked it, so somebody might get an idea. For some reason, my cat fucking loves these live streams. That is hilarious. I don't even know how do you gauge if a cat likes a live stream or not. But that actually reminds me, I should go see if I can get my dog. You guys can see all the makeup that ends on like the side of this chair. If you're wondering what this is, that's makeup from my hands. Like the dog. Where art thou? Honey, come here. There you are, jingling away. Yeah. Yeah, come here. Come here, baby. Hi, baby. Come here. Hi, you. Hi. You were on the staircase. What were you doing? Hi. Good girl. There's somebody on this stream who said their cat loves these live streams. They said their cat loves them. Well, you're kind of like a cat. The neighbor kids think you're a cat. How was your day, honey? Tell me all about it. You're like, I'm sleepy. I'm sleepy, Mom. Leave me alone. Were you barking at squirrels? Did you say hello to the neighbor kids? What did you do today, huh? You just sleepy? Just a big sleepy girl. She's in like nap mode right now. She's like, I want to sleep. Would love to hear the age gap question answered. Oh, I did not see an age gap question yet. But if I don't get to it in the next 5 minutes, feel free to re-ask it because we are running out of time. All right. Now you guys can see a little bit more of Dog. Hello, Dog. You're on the stream, Dog. She very much needs to go to the groomer. She is like a wild hedge right now. She is fully... She's wild. She's untamed. But you have a grooming appointment on the 28th. So in less than a week, you will once again be a beautiful, tame topiary. Are you excited? She likes the groomers. You like being groomed, huh? You're like, yes, all of the pets. All of the pets. Yeah, all of the pets. All right. Questions. I must answer them. I am compelled. All right. I wanted to go to events, but I have a monogamous partner, and I am never 100% sure what takes place at the parties. Well, if you want to try going to something, you guys can go to a munch together. Like, munches are never, ever, ever, ever going to involve sex or getting naked or anything like that. It's going to be people having conversations and talking to you and wanting to get to know you and making friends. That's what a munch is about. Any other kind of party, there is technically a non-zero probability of seeing like other naked people or other people having sex or other things that, depending on how you construe monogamy, might be uncomfortable for a strictly monogamous partner. So that is what I would work up to. But certainly, like, you can go to parties as a monogamous couple and like watch other people if you're into that, or not, or just play with each other, never talk to anyone, and then go home. People do that too. So there are definitely options if you are monogamous and do want to go to things. And you can always just ask. You can always ask event organizers and say, hey, what should I expect? What do people normally do? Will there be nudity? Will there be, I don't know, what, like, sex? Will there be, you know, will people try to pick us up? Will people be flirtatious with us? Like, what should we do? Yes, she's fully floofed. She is a very floofed dog. That is correct. Are you at maximum floof? I don't think so. You're not at maximum floof quite yet, but you are very floofy. You are a very floofy girl who is currently resting her chin on my desk and is very sweet. Ooh, Jillian Keenan has a video about Spanko drop. Yeah, that could definitely be worth checking out. I'm wondering how your idea of your pet self has evolved over time. I was wondering if the specific breed of dog you think of yourself as has changed over time as you've evolved in kink. I definitely don't do pet play as much these days just because I don't have a partner that's like super into pet play. I definitely feel like a Pomeranian, in no small part because I have a Pomeranian and she is lovely and beautiful and wonderful. But even before I had a Pomeranian, I sort of thought of myself as like a Pomeranian, like kind of cute companion dog, not very aggressive, not like, you know, too much energy, very much more of like a cuddly semi couch potato dog, not a fully couch potato dog. I like interaction, I like playing around, but I like the primary motivator is like cuddles and love and like being snuggly, not like digging holes in the yard. So that is very much my energy with that. Yeah, you gonna lick my hand? Okay. It's gonna make it very hard for me to scroll if you lick my hand. Do you know that? Are you gonna be done soon? All right, lick my other hand while I use this one to scroll with my mouse. Ooh, hey Evie, I'm not into pet play, but someone brought up a scene where they did acts like eating on the floor, etc., but in the headspace of a human, so like degradation type. Okay, there's a pet part two. What do you think of that? Have you heard about doing pet play scenes with the mindset that you are still human? Yes. So there is something that people do. One, degradation by itself can just be about degradation or humiliation, right? It doesn't have to just be a pet play thing. It could literally be like, ha ha ha, the prisoner has to eat off the floor because cruel prison warden or whatever. But there are definitely people that are into like what people might call like being a human pet. And that is where you are a pet that's also human. You don't role play being like a different animal or like a dog or a cat or a phoenix or whatever. Like you are a human that is treated as though you are a pet. And I would say this is, especially in the ye olde days, was like a very common form of pet play where it's like you are a human that is somebody's pet and you get treated like a pet. Like you get put in a cage or you eat off the floor. And that can definitely be a role play headspace. And I would say that oftentimes my own pet play stuff, if I'm not like directly doing pet play, tends to gravitate more towards that unless I am doing things that are more dog oriented, I would suppose. Like I'm kind of like halfway between being like a puppy player and being like a human pet. Like kind of a little bit of both, where I'm sort of like I think the analogy I usually use is like I'm like Corone. Like I'm like the VTuber Corone, where I'm like, I am dog. I am dog. I'm dog. Like where I am like I am a human, but I'm also a dog, but I'm like a human dog. Like I don't like it's confusing. And that's really the roleplay headspace I like to engage in. I don't think I'm a dog trapped in like a human body, anything like that. It's just like my roleplay headspace is definitely more like a humanoid pet, I think, than like strictly being like literally a dog, you know? But that is very much a thing. And a lot of people are into stuff like that. And a lot of people that are submissives or slaves that like degradation and things, they are into doing stuff like eating off of the floor or not being allowed to use the toilet or eating out of someone's hand because that feels very degrading and very like you're taking away their humanity in some way. And that can or cannot be related to pet play depending on the person. I was asking what makes paracord bad, considering I have tons of it. I was able to support my body weight plus camping gear. Oh no! I'm not saying paracord's bad. I think it's hard. So like MFP and like paracord, like you can definitely like depending on what it is, you can definitely use like nylon and MFP and stuff for more intense bondage. And a lot of people do prefer non-natural fibers for suspension because if you're like a self-suspender, they are more slippy, which when you are tying someone else is a negative because then they can suddenly move around in the rope in a way you didn't intend for them to do and that they didn't realize maybe was possible. But when you're tying yourself up and it's more slippy, it's easier to navigate, you know, being able to move around and be more mobile, which can be helpful when you're trying to tie yourself and have to get in kind of like awkward positions while like finishing a rope. However, because it is more slippy, it can come undone more easily, and it usually takes an extra like half hitch or something to seal off, you know, a non-natural fiber rope end, essentially. However, when somebody's just saying that they have like random paracord or something from Home Depot, that could be literally anything. It could be 4 millimeters thick. It could be extremely stretchy. It could be like, you know, it could have a lot of stuff with it that could make it not ideal for doing bondage in because it's not built for that purpose and it's a very generic description. But to be clear, lots of people use non-natural fibers of many different kinds for doing all different kinds of rope. You just have to know what the qualities of the rope are and whether or not that like vibes with what you want from the rope. I'm not saying that like it's weak or it's unsafe or anything like that because it totally depends on like the thickness, the breaking strength, the particular type of rope, you know, how much it stretches, how much give it has, and all those other factors. What do you think, baby? You think I'm hungry. Feed me dinner. That is what you think, huh? Very sweet girl. Oh, nothing about paracord is bad if you can handle the overall feel of it and so on, and proper versions of it have excellent low capabilities. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I don't think that it's bad. I think the main part about it that I find as a negative for suspension is it's very slippy, and if you are trying to tie someone fast, it burns a lot in a way that the average person, though of course with masochism, those things are all different, can be unpleasant for the average person. You've made a distinction between humiliation and degradation before. Could you elaborate? Is it guilt-based? So I talked about this on my stream from yesterday for Patreon, because we kind of did a deep dive into humiliation plays. That's why it was kind of part of the title today. And not everyone does this. A lot of people, like Dr. Liz Powell and Princess Kali, they see this line between like embarrassment, humiliation, and degradation in the same way that people see like top, bottom, dom, sub, master, slave as like this continuation of like how much power exchange is included in the relationship, where like top, bottom, and 0, dom, sub is like some amount greater than 0 but less than 100, and then like master, slave is like 100. And people kind of think similarly, where like embarrassment is very mild and not like generally enough on its own to provoke like a feeling of like emotional masochism, for example. Humiliation is kind of the most general ballpark of anything from like kind of mild feelings of humiliation to like some things that are fairly extreme. And then degradation is like the most extreme version of humiliation. And I see it again as a sort of like scale that, you know, is a way of defining exactly how intense things are. And I personally don't see it that way, because I think of degradation as being its own separate category, which is why when you negotiate for BDSM, you have to make sure you're on your own. You have to make sure you're on the same page as the people you're playing with, because different people come into things and kinks with their own understandings of what things mean. So I personally use for degradation, pulling up the Oxford Dictionary article or definition again, because this is what I used the other night, is where I want, maybe it wasn't, was it, what word did I Google yesterday that made this pop up? Maybe I just did degrade? Okay, I think it was degrade. So, the original definition of degrade, and there are many definitions of degrade, there's like 4, but the one that I resonate with is to reduce someone to a lower rank, especially as a punishment. So, when I'm talking about degradation, I consider degradation to be sort of like power exchange with like a little bit of objectification, but what it really is, it's about having my status lowered. It's about being reminded of like where my place is in the hierarchy, and being kind of like pushed down to like, you're like the floor, you're like a lamp, and the floor doesn't find it humiliating to be the floor, it's just the floor, you know? And so I don't find it humiliating to be degraded, because I don't think it's humiliating to be lesser than. To me, being lesser than and being reminded of my place as like in a role play context of being lesser than and being controlled and reminded of my lower rank in a hierarchy, to me that feels like, oh yeah, that's my place, that's where I should be, and I feel very like blissful, humble, grateful. Like I have a lot of positive emotions associated with that. None of them are about embarrassment or humiliation. It's just like, oh, this is where I'm meant to be. And I like degradation for me is a little bit of like forcefully, and I haven't made a video about this because this is very hard to define, and I just, it's going to be a big project when I eventually make a video about this, because it's just going to be a big project. So I think about it like it's about sort of almost being like forcibly reminded or like put in your place, rather than like always necessarily being like already there. Does that make sense? I don't really think that makes sense. But some people do see it as like degradation is like extreme humiliation that is very intense and very forceful, but because of the fact that like the main part of why I engage in BDSM is generally related to power exchange, I don't consider being made lower to be a bad thing and to be humiliating in any way. Does that make sense? But again, different people are going to see this differently. Degradation doesn't have to be humiliating depending on the headspace. IMO. Yes. That's what I'm trying to get to. That makes sense to me. Good to hear that. Good to hear. Yeah, I mean, if you want to call your partner alpha, go for it. Like, you can use whatever title you want to use that is between you and your partner. People use all sorts of titles, all sorts of phrases, and that is exclusively a decision for you to make. And if it's weird to other people, that is their problem. That's my opinion. Okay, so someone said there was a question in here about age gaps, and we have like 4 minutes left. So I'm going to try really hard to find it, but I can't promise I'm going to be able to find it. But if you guys haven't re-asked it yet and you remember what it was, please do, just so I can like get to it really quickly. Ah, here we go. It was literally the next question. Hi, Evie. My partner, Dom, and I, submissive, have a large age gap of 23 years. We suffer from the stigma of our age gap and our power exchange relationships. Do you have any advice for us? So I've never been in an age gap relationship that's that big. I have been in age gap relationships that are around a decade in size. Let's say that. I don't want to get too particular. But most of my relationships since I graduated college have been age gap relationships. They have been for what vanilla people think is a large age gap, because literally anything that is more than like 6 months is considered like a large age gap to like the people of the internet. By the way, Bendita is going to go back on the floor now because she is done being on the chair. And I thank you so much for this beautiful time we've spent together. And my little gremlin. My little dog, Mop. My beautiful wild bush. My little wild topiary. You are so beautiful. You are so precious. And I cannot wait for next week when you will be a beautiful tamed bush and topiary once again. Alright. Bye-bye. Oh, dog hair everywhere. Okay. So, people suck. And people are going to tell you their opinions, whether or not you want to hear them, because everyone thinks their own opinions are the most important thing on the planet, and that surely you have never previously considered how awful it is to be in an age gap with someone and abuse and they're manipulating you. And if like you're an adult, like it's one thing if it's like an 18-year-old with somebody in their 40s where it's like, he's my first boyfriend and I'm 18. It's like, then I might want to reconsider. I would raise an eyebrow at that personally, just because not because I don't think it would be possible to do it in a healthy way, but because I would have a lot of questions about how do you make sure that stays healthy with such an age gap. And I think you have to focus on what works about your relationship and remind people if it's somebody you care about. I think for strangers, like, lost cause. Would not bother trying to justify my relationship to strangers and people that don't matter in my actual life. But for people that do matter, like family members, close friends, your kink community, whatever it is, I would really focus on identifying what it is about your relationship that works, right? How you have shared values, how you have shared goals, how you both want the same things out of life and are working towards that. How you both have, similar needs or communication styles, or how compatible you are with similar interests, or how you both make each other really happy. Like, focus on whatever it is. And I would hope that the key part I think that makes an age gap relationship work is having shared values and goals. Because you can have a value set that is very different, and you can have a relationship that works if it's very limited. But if you are trying to have like a full-fledged MS relationship and you don't have a core set of shared values about, like, you know, what sort of roles women are supposed to have and who manages the money, and, like, you know, your basic beliefs about life and morality and those things that really, really matter. If you guys don't mesh there, regardless of what other people think, it is very difficult to maintain a power exchange relationship based on that. Then when you add in the age gap on top of that, you have the potential for a value struggle. You also have the potential for a goal struggle, where if you are 20 and your partner's 45 and you're thinking, oh yeah, in like 5 years, I maybe want to have kids, I really want to get married. And if your partner's 45, already been divorced, has 3 kids that are almost adults from that previous divorce, they might not want to start a second family and be raising kids in their 50s. They might not want to get married again because divorce, like, shattered the illusion of, like, marriage as a necessary part of a romantic relationship. Like, you have to really hone in on, do we want the same things from life? Can we move in that direction together? Because if you want to have a committed power exchange relationship, especially, but in general, like, if you want to be each other's, like, life partners, if you don't want the same things out of life, it's very difficult to be partners in that, especially when those things conflict in terms of, like, wanting kids, not wanting kids, wanting to cohabitate, not wanting to cohabitate. Like, there's a million things you could have potential conflict over. So if you guys can work through that and identify, okay, we want the same things, we've talked about it, we get along in XYZ fashion, this is all the things that are important to us, we share these things, that is what's important. And hopefully eventually your family, your friends, or whoever it is, over time will be able to see, okay, they really get along, the age gap maybe is a little weird to us, but they seem to actually have each other's back, and they seem to actually make each other happy, and that's really what we should be focused about, you know? Yeah, for the general population, a large age gap is usually not ideal as a matter of stats. No shared values and interests, for example, or equality. Kinksters are not the general population, though. Yeah. And of course, other factors as well, right? Like, if they're, really advanced in their career and they make like 200K a year, and then, like, you're barely out of college and have no money to your name. There's also other power dynamics that exist outside of having a power exchange relationship that can also make that more difficult for you to be able to navigate. But, like, I don't have time to get into all of that. But just know that I think if what the point is to communicate your relationship in a way where hopefully people can start to understand it, that is what I would really focus on. All right, I think I have time for one more kind of short question. Let's see what we got. All right, I'm just going to scroll to the bottom here and just kind of see whatever pops up first. Does degradation as status exchange make sense? I think exchange maybe be the wrong way to phrase that. Like, I don't even really love the term power exchange because of the implication that it kind of goes back and forth. But, like, status, I'm not sure. Something with status I think would make sense, but I don't know if exchange is exactly the word I would go for personally. I'm like 19. Is people very welcome in a munch for people my age? Because I'm going to my first event tomorrow, as well as my first BDSM event. So, yes, I would definitely check to see who is RSVP'd, see if there are people around your age. If you're in like a college town, absolutely. Like, if you're in a university town, if you're in a college town, there will definitely be people that are probably from your school at that event. I would basically guarantee it. However, it is worth asking the event coordinator and being like, hey, you know, what kind of people normally go to this? Is for more experienced people? Is it going to be welcoming to new people? Just to make sure you're going to the right spot. I would say 19 is a little bit young, but certainly you will meet people in their, like, early 20s, for example, like 20, 21, 22, I think is more common than like 19. But I also know people that literally just like get started as soon as they turn 18 and they go from there and they never have any problems. I would look for like a TNG or the next generation event that is for people that are under 35. So that is going to be your sort of ideal age range of like-minded kinksters, even though 35 probably seems like anciently old to you at 18, but or 19 rather, sorry. But that is going to be your best bet for finding people that are in your area that are closer in age to you than like people that are maybe in their 40s and 50s. But absolutely, you should be welcome. If you're not, that is a red flag. Shouldn't go there again. I personally, even when I was like the youngest person at an event where like the average age was like 50, even as a 21-year-old, as a 20-year-old, I felt very welcome and I felt safe. And I've never had my consent violated or boundaries pushed because I was like really young and everyone else around me was like old enough to be one of my parents. So your mileage will vary on that one, but I personally haven't had any negative experiences simply because of my age and being younger than other people around me. If anything, older people have been very excited to see me and like pass on information and share stories and share their background because they like seeing that other kinksters are younger, are there, and want to continue that tradition of education and community and togetherness that they might have been afraid was maybe going to go away at some point. Status reduction. Status affirming? Yeah, I think, sure. Why not? All that stuff. I'll think about that. Oh, the event organizer is actually not answering you when you send a message? That's a red flag. This is what I would do. If I still wanted to go, I would go like as soon as it starts, drive myself, and then if I got bad vibes in the first like 5 or 10 minutes, I would just leave. That would be my plan. I would be like, no obligation to stay, probably not gonna stay, but I do still want to check it out. And, you know, if it's good, it's good. But then, you know, people could just be busy. Organizing an event is a lot of work, but I wish you the best of luck. And please come back next Friday, tell us how it went. And if it was awesome, we'll talk about it. And if it sucked, we'll commiserate and we'll maybe give some advice for finding a better event in the future. But with that being said, it is 7 after 8 o'clock, so it is time for me to be done streaming, you guys. I don't know what I am. Tired? Something. I need to lay down. I need to take a nap. I'm not little, but I need a nap. So I'm going to go lay down for a little bit. I am streaming tomorrow on Patreon. I've streamed 5 days this week. Who am I? I'm basically a professional streamer. I'm streaming tomorrow on my Patreon. We are watching the finale of the 365 Days trilogy. And we've been watching all those movies. They're terrible. They're awful. If you want to cringe with us at Nacho and Laura and all of the other wonderful cast of characters in that attempt at a 50 Shades of Grey fan fiction, which in itself is a Twilight fan fiction, it's a nice cringy movie to watch. It's at 7 o'clock tomorrow Pacific time. So basically, an hour earlier than this, tomorrow will be when we're streaming. And if you can't make it, that stream will be up for everyone for at least a week if you can't stay for the whole thing, if you can't watch it for some reason. But it's usually a fun time, and I hope to see you guys there. But with that being said, thank you all so much for also following me on Twitch. I have been playing, what the fuck is it called? Cyberpunk 2077? It's like Cyberpunk 2022. No, that's the wrong one. But I am streaming on there. Oh god, it's auto-playing. So I've been streaming on there. It's been a lot of fun. You guys have been just a hoot and a hollering over there. And if you want to see me stream on there, I do stream on Mondays typically. But Cyberpunk is a very engaging game, and I have enjoyed it, and I would like to keep playing it. So I will keep playing it. But yes, the original Cyberpunk, the actual one that is a tabletop game, was actually produced in 1988, and it's called Cyberpunk 2020. And now it's Cyberpunk 2077, because why not? Yeah, thank you all so much for being here. Give it a like, leave a comment, follow me for next time, go over to my Twitch and hang out maybe on Monday if you want to see me on there, if you want more fun streaming times. And I will talk to you again soon. Bye.